Good morning. My name is Yvonne Myers, and I'm the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for the Fort Collins Area Chamber. I have the pleasure of being your MC for the day. Welcome to the Fort Collins Area Chamber's Talent Summit. We've got a great program planned today, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us in this important conversation about rethinking the way we work. I want to start with some thank yous and a few announcements. First, today's event is only possible because of the strong support of our sponsors. Their logos will run across the screen today, and they are posted on the event website. Our gold sponsor, the City of Fort Collins. BizWest Media, Elevations Credit Union, HP, Robert Half, and UC Health are our bronze sponsors. Our event sponsors, Canvas Credit Union, Jet Marketing, North 40 News, Northern Engineering, and Sinorama. We invite you today to get involved on social media by using the hashtag Work in Northern Colorado. It's a great way to show your support of the Chamber while learning about issues affecting our workforce and business community. All the materials from today will be available on our website, fortcollinschamber.com. Take advantage of our chat box during the session to add your input, questions, and comments. This year's theme, Rethinking the Way We Work, will offer our business community the opportunity to learn about current trends and actionable activities to attain, retain, and develop your workforce. The last 2 years has changed the world of work, and businesses need support for how to adapt for success in this new environment. We hope these presentations will expand your knowledge around talent issues. I'm pleased to introduce our gold sponsor of this event. The City of Fort Collins has been a tremendous regional partner when it comes to talent development and recruitment. Thank you to the City of Fort Collins for sponsoring this event. I'm pleased to hand it over to Teresa Roach, Chief Human Resources Officer with the City of Fort Collins, who will introduce our keynote speaker. Teresa?
Yvonne, thank you. And it's so good to have you at the Chamber after your years of service at Columbine Health Systems. And I am delighted that the city sponsors this event. It's one of our favorite every year. And hello to all of our colleagues that are out there. It's my joy to introduce Bonnie Dowling, and I have two parts to the introduction. First, I'm going to tell you some facts about Bonnie. So she's at McKinsey & Company, and she serves clients across multiple sectors and initiatives, including financial services, health systems, federal and state agencies, and NGOs, among others. Her work has primarily been on operational efficiency and organizational transformation, and she has deep expertise in end-to-end talent management with a particular focus on hybrid virtual operating models, employee engagement, capability building, leadership development, and labor optimization. She's led McKinsey's thinking around how employees and employers can work together to reimagine how we work. So I'm sure we're going to be hearing some thoughts about that today, Bonnie. She's developed McKinsey's proprietary visualization, potential, and assessment tools, and she's co-led the Skilling at Scale, which is about building capability across the organization. The part that I want to share that's the second is that I sleep with one of Bonnie's articles. I have long been a fan of McKinsey & Company for their intellectual insights and practical applications. And Bonnie, when this article came out last July, I sent it immediately to many colleagues, and it became one of our required readings for a body of our leaders that have been meeting about the future of work. A couple of the highlights from that article that I want to share with the group, and there's another article that you wrote about the great attraction and attrition, but this is the one I'm going to focus on. So that article helped us understand that employees are reevaluating their relationship with work. The fact that the next operating model is a separate discussion and will take years, and that it's separate from the return to office, and that leaders need to embrace a test and learn culture and a mind shift change to lead in this new future. The last line that I loved that helped me personally, Bonnie, and is helping all of us at the city, and I encourage everyone to read it, is the line that stayed with me. Employers are underestimating the disconnect and failing to realize the finish line is a mirage. So that really captured me, Bonnie, and I welcome hearing what you're going to share today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for that fabulous introduction. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. I I do live in Golden, so just a little bit south of you all, but excited to share our findings and our research. And I also loved that original article, Teresa. It was my first McKinsey quarterly publication on hybrid, and that was really important. But we do have multiple follow-ons around the great attrition or great attraction, and gone for good or gone for now, all about the changing talent landscape and how you can compete for talent now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. I believe there is a way in your Cvent platform that you are able to submit questions. Please do so throughout my presentation, as I would love to answer any questions and make this as tactical and helpful for all of you as possible. So with that, here we go. So there are a number of trends that have been impacting the workforce well before COVID kind of hit the scene. Increased connectivity. We think about our children, we think about even ourselves, but we've become much more connected as a broader population and around the world. And what that means for workforces, right, is that not only are we operating in a much more virtual environment since COVID, but even before, people that we were recruiting already knew about our companies well before we ever contacted them. Things like Glassdoor or Fishbowl, things of that nature, were actually sharing a lot of our inside secrets, if you will, not necessarily secrets, but things about our culture and pay and things of that nature. So that connectivity has really increased, and it just accelerated with COVID as we moved more into virtual operating models. Lower transaction costs. What do I mean by this? As we've become more connected and technology has played greater roles in our collaboration, we've been able to collaborate across much vaster distances with much more ease. But in addition to that, it means that some of the barriers to changing jobs and other things have actually reduced over the course of COVID. So when many of us were growing up, we thought about longer term careers, and we may have even been a bit skeptical if people switch careers too often. A lot of that has changed and been accelerated by COVID. It's no longer crazy to see people moving between jobs. That opportunity cost has really been reduced in terms of changing. Unprecedented automation. This probably doesn't need a lot of explanation. I think it's something that we've been seeing and feeling for quite a while. We now say that since COVID, every business is a technology business. And then there's been a shift in societal expectations, and I think this one is really important. Previously, in an old world, we could do top-down management and we could expect that our employees would kind of listen and move forward. That has been changing. It has been changing for a while now, and our employees want to be a part of the solution and a part of the conversation that identifies those solutions. And it's not just with work, it's much more broad than that. We see a lot of examples of this. We see it with companies that are pulling out of Russia right now, is an example that we hear about a lot. They're doing it for many reasons, but one of them is that their employees are expecting it of them. They're expecting and they're communicating that they want to see their employers take a bigger stand, and they want to be a part of conversation and how that happens. What does all this mean? In light of COVID and the accelerating of all of these trends, it's that we have an opportunity. We have an incredible opportunity that I would say is, if not once in a lifetime, once in a generation, it's probably the biggest opportunity that we'll have to rethink how we work. But we can actually make work in a better way for ourselves as employers, for our employees, as well as for our customers. And that's really, really exciting. Unfortunately, we're also all really exhausted. So while we have this really great opportunity, everyone is burned out. 42% of women in our latest research were saying that they were often or almost always burned out. That's not an occasional thing. That is I am waking up tired and I am going to bed tired. I am tired all of the time. And what does that do? What is the impact on that when it comes to work? It means I'm not as productive. It means I'm more likely to leave. It means that I'm not ready to lean in and get excited about things and lead new change. It means I really want to take a nap. The same was true for 35% of the men as well. So how is that manifesting itself? I think you've all seen the headlines. Employees are quitting their jobs at a record pace. It seems that we continue to increase. The last Stats that we had were we had over 4 million quit. I believe that was in January. And it continues to move that way. That's voluntary attrition. What you see on this graph is the job openings, the quits, which is the voluntary attrition. Those are people who are leaving of their own accord, as well as involuntary attrition, the layoffs and discharges. These are the people that we as employers are releasing. And you see that increase, 22% increase in the amount of voluntary attrition, coinciding with a decrease in the layoffs and discharges. What we've been hearing more and more is it's not because there's fewer people that we want to lay off or fire or discharge, but it's that we're holding on to talent that we may not otherwise have held on to because we're worried about replacing them, especially in a labor market where we've seen such an increase in job openings. It's tight. The bad news is that it's likely to continue. Our research was in line with the vast majority of other research and surveys that were done in similar timeframes, saying that about 40% of people were at least somewhat likely to leave their jobs in the next 6 months. But that's actually not so terrible. It is a big increase, and those that actually do it, it does matter. But what's really driving the challenges here are that people are leaving without jobs. So they're not just going to a competitor, which many of us are actually quite used to. We recruit from each other. They're leaving the workforce entirely. So 36% of the people who left in the past 6 months did so without a job in hand. 64% of the 40% that said that they were somewhat likely to leave said that they would do so without a job in hand. That wasn't an important factor. That's a number of stats there, so I want to put it into context for you. If we extrapolated that across America, that would be the entire full-time employed population of California, Texas, Georgia, and Massachusetts combined exiting the workforce. And that's why our Starbucks isn't open on a Saturday morning anymore. That's the challenge we're facing. Around this time, I usually get some questions around, where are they going? Are they coming back? Can we wait them out? We have just published research on this. And what we found was that's not a great plan. We may not be able to wait them out. 29%, only 29% have actually returned to traditional full-time employment. 44% have no plans to do so in the next 6 months. That is a significant number that are exiting the workforce entirely. That causes a significant squeeze on our recruitment, on our pipelines, on all of that. So where are they going? What are they doing? They're doing a whole variety of things. Prior to the pandemic, we had been seeing a continual increase in the over 65 group in terms of their involvement in the workforce. So they were coming back. That didn't happen during COVID. We saw more people retire, both early retirements and scheduled retirements, but or even taking the retirement that they had previously pushed out. We actually saw 2 million more than the US Bureau of Labor Statistics had predicted. In case it's helpful to continue with those analogies, that is the entire full-time employed population of the state of Oregon. We also didn't see people returning. So my husband is from New England, so I like to call them the Gronkowskis or the Bradys of the world. But these are the folks that, retired, then their best friend called, said, hey, we can go win a Super Bowl together. And they said, oh, that sounds fun. I'll come out of retirement. We didn't have unretirements during COVID. People were staying retired. That is a big group of people that are taking themselves out entirely. We also saw people leaving because childcare had become incredibly unreliable and was for skyrocketing costs. I don't know how many people on here are listening that have children, but as a mother of a 6-year-old, I can tell you, I get, cold sweats when I get the emails from her school that happen basically a weekly basis that say, there's been an exposure. You have been notified if your child was exposed and you need to quarantine for X amount of time. That level of unreliability around what we had previously counted on made some people rethink what they were doing. Also, if they were spending the majority of their paychecks on childcare, things like that, there was a shift in priorities. and people started looking for new jobs or new ways to support themselves. We had teachers that were becoming influencers and saying, look, I'm still doing what I'm passionate about, but my platform has grown and I'm making money off of it. Even if some of us may not consider influencers a real job, it is the number one job that our most recent graduates want. So it is something that people are going to. We had people join the gig economy in record numbers. We also had record numbers of small business applicants. That's wonderful and incredibly exciting. It also continues to take people out of the traditional full-time employed market. So again, that's where you start to see that labor squeeze. Any questions? I know, Yvonne, you were monitoring them. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything as I go.
No, there aren't any questions yet.
Great, I will keep going then. So what are we going to do? Well, we can't solve a problem that we don't understand. And I think this was the biggest thing that we found in our research, which was that there's been a mindset shift and employers have not necessarily kept up. When we asked employees why they left their jobs, why they quit, you'll see on this chart in white, in the very top, what they said were the most important factors, the real drivers behind their decisions. And then in the middle section, you'll see what they said was important, not quite as important as the top. When we asked employers why people were leaving, you'll see what they said was most important and what they thought was at least somewhat important. You'll already start to see that difference, but we can highlight that. And in dark blue, we have what employees are saying, hey, these things are way more important than you think they are, employers. In light blue, you have what employees are saying, it's important, but it's not as important as you think it is. And then gray is where we have a balance. What I'd love to highlight here is that what employees are saying is it's the relational pieces. It's feeling valued by my manager and my organization. It's feeling like I have a sense of belonging. And what employers are saying is it's the same reasons that it was in 2015. It's the same reasons as it's always been. They're not getting paid enough. They want a better job. It's a poor health thing. That's a fundamental disconnect between transactional answers or drivers and relational. I will share an article that has all of this laid out so that you'll have this chart in case it's at all helpful. But that's the biggest piece, right? Is that disconnect. And so how are we actually going to retain our employees and attract new ones if we're missing this? We have to start by listening. If we're not listening to our employees, then we're going to do the wrong things, or we're going to do less effective things. And how are we listening to them? Especially in a virtual environment. Many people are used to the traditional methods of, hey, well, I ran into people in the water cooler, I saw people in the lunchroom, this is what I'm hearing. That's how many executives kept a pulse on their organizations previously. We have to now think about how are we doing pulse surveys, pulse checks? How are we doing skip level calling? So not just calling the people that report into me, but the people that report into them. Are we just picking up the phone and calling people? How are we checking in? Are we making time for that to understand what's important to our employees? Once we do that, we'll find out things like flexibility, incredibly critical, potentially the most critical thing. And we have to anchor in it. And I think this gets a little bit to what the article Teresa was looking at, which was around hybrid virtual. But I want to also flag that we've gotten a little bit lazy when it comes to how we think about flexibility in the virtual world. We're using the location of work as a proxy for flexibility. That's only one component. We need to think about when we work, and we need to think about how we work. One of the things I like to tell people is, yes, flexibility was the #1 ask of employees prior to the pandemic in 2019. And we all went virtual. Well, not all of us, but many people went virtual. When we did so, did we actually get flexibility? There are days when I have 15 hours of video conference straight. The only flexibility I have on those days is that I can wear athleisure on the bottom instead of a suit. That's not necessarily the flexibility I think I was looking for, or the broader workforce when we said it was the #1 ask. So let's think about when we're working. How are we thinking about core collaboration hours versus the autonomy to decide when and how you're getting your work done, as well as how we're working? How are we teaming with others? How are we thinking about things like that? And then on the hybrid and on that location piece, how are we thinking about purposeful presence? I started getting into this research around the attrition because as I was having conversations with companies and clients all over the world around hybrid virtual, I was hearing more and more, well, we've made our announcement. We're going to be 3 days a week in the office, 2 days a week work from home, but it can't be Monday and Friday. What is that telling people? It's saying we don't trust you not to take a 4-day vacation. Is that the message that we want to be conveying to a workforce that in many cases increased their productivity over the past 2 years? And we're also not telling them why. We're giving them a sort of fuzzy reason of, well, we think it's important. What employees are saying is, I want to know why. It's not that I don't want to come in. Many employees want to come in. They don't want to come in 5 days a week, but they want to know why. They want it to be purpose-driven. So how are we actually thinking about what are the activities that we're doing that actually truly benefit from being in person? And there are plenty. We have not figured out how to apprentice people at scale in a virtual world. We know that there's sensitive conversations and negotiations that are better in person, creative collaboration, things like that. But let's identify those activities. And then we can use that as a basis for driving that purpose-driven presence. We also, once we figure out what those guidelines are, when we want people to come in for why, we have to role model them. We can't be doing something totally different than what we're asking of our employees. And that goes both ways. If we are coming in 5 days a week, our employees will come in 5 days a week. It will devolve to that. I was advising a large financial institution in the summer of 2020. So we're still like really in the pandemic and people are staying home. And the executives decided to meet in the on-site. They had an on-site meeting, and within 3 weeks, you could not book a conference room. Word had gotten out, and everyone thought the expectation was that they should be back on site. We have to communicate those things clearly. It also can raise equity issues if we're doing something differently, because we will fall into recency bias, giving opportunities and promotions to those we see, and not those that are taking advantage of the policies that we put in place. So something to think about. Strengthen your culture. People said the relational aspect was important. What are we doing to actually strengthen that? So many leaders that I speak to say, but isn't this having your cake and eating it too? They want to work virtually, but they also want a strong culture. Does that even work? It does work. There are a number of organizations, entirely virtual organizations, that actually have incredible cultures. And by the way, there's a number of organizations that were 100% on site that had terrible cultures. They're not, they don't equate being on site and having a strong culture. You have to actually invest in that culture. You have to think about it, and you have to really focus on building it. So again, picking up the phone and calling people, creating Slack channels or Teams channels, whatever it is that you're using, that are informal in nature, that give people an opportunity to engage, humble brag, or give kudos, or share meaningful things that they're doing. I was working with one organization. They said, yeah, you know what's not helping our culture? Zoom happy hours. Nobody wants to do that. I was like, yeah, nobody wants to do that. Totally right. So what we designed and did was say, okay, well, we were having people take an hour out of their day to do a Zoom happy hour. What if instead we set an hour of community impact? And we gave people an hour to go out into their community and do something that they were passionate about. Volunteer at a soup kitchen, coach a kid's soccer team, whatever it was. And they sent pictures in on a Slack channel. And so that was a way that people were able to start to bond and see each other and what they were doing and make comments. And they could also start asking others if they wanted to join them. So different things like that can be helpful to build your community even in a virtual world. I also like to flag that one of my very best friends at the firm, so close that she spent Christmas to New Year's at my house with her husband and 3 children. We had never met till she got off the plane on the day after Christmas. You can build really strong relationships, but you have to be deliberate about them. It's not as easy necessarily as it was when you could just, see people, but it's not impossible either. You just have to invest in it. Valuing your employees as whole people. This one is one of my favorite because I think that it's actually something that we can start doing right away. I talked about flexibility and how we need to think about how we work and all of that. We also looked at that chart that said, where is this disconnect? One place that it wasn't, one place that employees and employers were aligned as being the most important was work-life balance. If we know that, and we're thinking about, okay, so we've got to change some of the ways that we work to be more efficient, to try to give some of that back. What can we do in the meantime? Because that's going to take us a while. That's not something we're going to do overnight. We can start to change our benefits. We can use our benefits as a lever by aligning them with our employee priorities. I was speaking with an executive team and they said, we actually did a benefits analysis and we found that we've always done a gym subsidy, but that it's really our young men that are using the gym subsidy. Nobody else really is taking advantage of that benefit. We were wondering what you thought about doing a house cleaning subsidy. And I was like, you can hire me, I'm available. A house cleaning subsidy? That's amazing. What does that do? It gives me more work-life balance without actually changing the work that I'm doing. Because it turns out I don't like scrubbing toilets. Most people don't. So if you can actually start to give me back some of my time that was never the employer's anyway, but it's something that then allows me to find more balance, that's something you can do with your benefits. It's something that shows me also that you value who I am broadly and my time outside of work. And recognizing who people are inside and outside of work. I have not had a great run of luck when it comes to 2022 in the car situation. Given that we're all from Colorado, it's probably known that we've had an increase in car thefts. So our car was stolen, and that was in January. And also turns out insurance is not like super forgiving on that front. They give you 5 days to have a rental in which you have to buy a car. In today's market, that is not really a reasonable amount of time. It's very difficult. We went to like 7 dealerships and they didn't even have cars. And my husband happens to be 6'10", so he doesn't even fit in all of the cars. So this is a huge stress going on while I was working and had everything else going on, right? A senior partner, so someone who's very senior at the firm, called me one morning very early and said, Bonnie, I've been thinking about your stolen car situation. I was like, what? Like, I didn't even know you knew that our car was stolen. I've been thinking about it, and here are 5 different cars that I think your husband will fit into that you should consider. It took him 5 minutes. I hate buying cars. I didn't know what car to even start to look at. We were having no luck. It was very stressful. And here's the senior partner who was thinking about who I was outside of work, the challenges I was facing, the stress that I had, and took 5 minutes out of his day to call me, tell me 5 cars that I should look at. And we ended up buying one of those cars. And it massively streamlined everything that we were doing, which was really helpful. And it also showed that he cared about me outside of work. So thinking about those little things and doing those with your employees are also really important. And then finally, ensure that people have the skills and the resources to lead in this new environment. I can't emphasize enough how important this is. We switched to virtual operating models practically overnight. That doesn't mean that we built the skills in our employees and our managers to lead in virtual or hybrid models. We certainly didn't do it overnight. Our managers need to do things like share and be vulnerable if they want their employees to do it back. They need to understand, how are they measuring productivity? How are they thinking about it from an impact standpoint as opposed to activity driven? So many people have depended on what I like to call butts and seats as the measure of productivity. It wasn't a good measure then, and it's an impossible measure now. So how are you thinking about what people are hired to do and if they're actually accomplishing those and doing it in a way that's not micromanaging? One of the things that I like to talk about also is many people don't know that there's Zoom makeup available. In the same way that many people don't know how to use Miro or Mural, which are really popular collaboration tools, or how to even run surveys on Zoom. Someone on their team does, probably an analyst. And so they wait for them to join if they want to do something like that. We need to build the technical skills as well as the leadership skills. We were raised in in-person environments. It is a fundamental shift in how you lead in a hybrid or a virtual world. If we don't build those skills, there will be a trickle-down impact that will affect our frontline workers as well, and they'll leave. So those are some things to start thinking about and doing. I am happy to take some questions now, if folks have them.
Bonnie, I don't see any questions in the chat. So I think your presentation has been amazing and super helpful, and actually actionable things that we can work on right away. So we're so grateful that you're here today, and so grateful that you're in Golden. We feel like you're our girl. And as you know, Teresa Roach and I are your groupie. So we're excited to have you here. And if we get any questions from anyone, I'll forward them into an email, and we'll go from there, and we'll share with everyone the articles that you'll share with us that have the slides contained of what you sent today. So really appreciate that.
That sounds perfect. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here, and feel free to follow up with any additional questions.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today and all your insights and your work. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
So next up, it's my privilege to introduce Catherine Keegan, Director of the Office of Future of Work, to give us an overview of the Office of Future Work's efforts to expand registered apprenticeship programs across Colorado. Catherine began her career working with immigrants and refugees in Boston. This work led her to pursue a Master's of Science in Social Work at the University of Texas at Austin, where she focused her studies on community and administrative leadership. Since then, Catherine has managed AmeriCorps, workforce readiness, and career coaching development programs in Texas, Indiana, and Colorado. And luckily, in August of 2019, she joined the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment as the Director of the Office of Future of Work, leading the state's efforts to raise awareness about the future of work, modernize worker protections and benefits, prepare for digital transformation, and through the State Apprenticeship Agency, expand access to registered apprenticeship programs, which we are super excited about, as you know, Catherine. So excited to have you in that work. In addition to Catherine's presentation, we'll then also be joined by Sandra Jackham, Work-Based Learning Alliance Navigator, supporting NOCO Inspire, and the Larimer and Weld Work-Based Learning Alliance, which is no easy work. That's a lot of effort she puts into that. She will discuss how to connect regionally to apprenticeships and other work-based learning partnerships through regional work-based learning initiatives that collaborate to engage the business community and to connect them with valuable talent. Learn how to connect regionally to apprenticeships and other work-based learning partnerships through this wonderful tandem of Catherine and Sandra. So the screen is yours, ladies.
All right, I think I'm correctly sharing my screen, but I'm sure someone will let me know if I'm not. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for inviting me to speak. I'm so excited to be here and learn so much from Bonnie's presentation. So it was great to hear that. And I think a lot of the resources that we'll share here will build off what Bonnie shared. So as Yvonne said, I am Catherine Keegan. I'm the Director for the Office of the Future of Work at the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. I have my email address here, and I'll be sure to share slides and also some links to resources after I wrap up my talking points. I wanted to start by just sharing some information about what the Office of the Future of Work is, in case you haven't heard of it. It was established in September of 2019 through an executive order from Governor Polis, and it began with a mandate to understand and raise awareness about the impact of the future of work. And so as the office has evolved, we've established a few key priority areas, including expanding access to registered apprenticeship programs, because we see that as one of the most viable models to improve equity in our talent pipeline, to help businesses find the talent they need, and to support businesses in building those sustainable talent pipelines so all Coloradans can find opportunity. In addition to that, I do presentations around future of work trends so that we're providing that context and information to partners across the state about what the future of work looks like, what the past of work looks like as well, to understand how we've gotten to where we are today and what our economy looks like. The office also works closely with the Colorado Broadband Office to think about digital transformation and increasing digital equity across the state. So as we improve our broadband infrastructure, we also need to decrease the adoption gap and ensure that everyone has access to affordable internet, to devices, to digital skills, so that they can pursue their goals, whether that's for work, learning, or daily life. So if that's of interest, wanted to throw that out there. And then lastly, we also do some research on worker protections and benefits. As you heard Bonnie say, more and more people are pursuing independent contractor work and piecing together a lifestyle that includes many different types of jobs. And so we are thinking about how we evolve our benefits and protection systems to be more portable to support all the different types of work people are doing. So wanted to provide that context for you. And ultimately what we are working towards is a future of work in Colorado where everyone has access to the education and skill training they need that is connected to meaningful and sustainable employment. So very excited to be here to talk about one of those strategies, which is registered apprenticeship programs and the resources we have at the state and the progress we're making in the state. Also, you can tell I've had my coffee, so if I'm talking too fast, I'll try to slow it down, and then feel free to ask any questions as well. We'll get to those. I've already said the term future of work a bunch of times because it's part of my my title in the office that I oversee. But I think it's helpful to define the term because it's a buzzword. It was a buzzword before the pandemic and has become even more of a buzzword. And so I want to share our definition as we think about the future of work. We're considering many different forces at play that are shaping the work we do and how we do it. So not only is it the impact of technological advances like the adoption of automation and artificial intelligence, it also includes the impact of market forces, demographic shifts in our state who makes up our workforce, as well as the ongoing impact of globalization. So we try to take a pretty holistic approach to understanding what the future of work might look like and conduct research to understand how that shapes work here in Colorado. So very holistic. It's not one thing, but a combination of forces that are playing out for different populations, different regions, differently. And so and I won't repeat what Bonnie said because she said it better than I could have with her presentation, but we've seen, of course, how the pandemic has accelerated and changed a lot of the future of work trends that we were looking at. So the office was established in September of 2019. We had some understanding about these trends to pay attention to, and then the pandemic hit and really shaped, accelerated all of these trends and is reshaping the future of work as we know it. And so we've seen how individuals are leaving work, how the adoption of technology has increased both in terms of automation and artificial intelligence, but just the digitalization of work as well. We know that there's been an outsized impact on low-wage workers across the country and across Colorado who were more likely to be in positions that were impacted by the pandemic. And we've seen that as our demographics continue to change, as our birth rates continue to decline, and as our workforce continues to age, that we really have a need to tap into talent pools that we may not have considered before or targeted strategically. There is not one potential worker to be left behind. And so thinking really strategically about how to build that talent pipeline and retain that talent pipeline is a key part of our strategy. And so on the right side, you see, we're really thinking at the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment and in the office about how we create a culture and resources to support employers and workers to build a culture of lifelong career-connected learning so that people can reskill, upskill, next skill throughout their lives. One thing we do know about the future of work is that it includes a lot of transitions. People will be shifting work a lot more often as industries change, as their personal circumstances change. People will be putting together multiple jobs. We've heard some, with the growth of the independent worker that people are moving from having 6 jobs across their career to having 6 different types of incomes at once. And so what does that mean for our talent pipeline? We believe in skills-based hiring as a way to tap into talent pools we may have underestimated, to understand how people build skills throughout their life experience through a wide variety of training and life experience and careers. And we know that employers need to be invested and supported in producing talent so that we can build our talent pipeline in partnership with education and other workforce development strategies. So as part of all of that, one of the key investments we've made in the state and the priorities that addresses a lot of these talent strategies is registered apprenticeship programs. That's why we believe apprenticeships really are a part of the future of work. They're a powerful model because it involves bringing industry to the table to really shape and be intentional about designing their talent, their skill development and talent strategies. It brings in different segments of the workforce as the journey workers, as the mentors. It creates a sort of lower barrier to entry for people who may be transitioning industries or maybe just starting out their careers and exploring opportunities for them. And we know it has a really great ROI across the country. We've seen that for every $1 invested in registered apprenticeships, the return on investment is $1.47. So we're going all in on apprenticeship in Colorado. We believe it's a critical piece of our future for talent development and retention throughout the state. And so I'm excited to share with you some of the updates about the State Apprenticeship Agency and these new investments and resources from the state level, in addition to what you'll hear from Sandra. I think one of the key things, I think many of you might be familiar with apprenticeships already, but what I always like to share is those 5 key elements of a registered apprenticeship program, which really, I think, highlights those key pieces that we see as so powerful about this model. So it's that direct business involvement. It is intentional, and it begins and ends with businesses being at the table and shaping what they need. It also includes on-the-job learning, so people are building skills in the workplace as they're employed. It also has classroom instruction. You can connect, depending on how you design your registered apprenticeship program. It could involve a community college, an institution of higher ed, or another training provider, or you could have in-house related instruction that takes place in a classroom. It also involves a progressive wage increase, so that as you learn skills as an apprentice, your wages increase based on that skill development. And then when you complete a registered apprenticeship program, you receive a certificate of completion, which is a nationally recognized credential. We've also seen more and more apprenticeships involve, in addition to that wage increase, also involve an interim credential related to that industry. So all of those pieces, again, are supporting the employer and building the talent that they need, and are also helping an apprentice enter into a quality work experience with these protections in place. And Colorado's seen significant growth in apprenticeships across the last few years as we've grown our investment. We have 6,000, a little bit over 6,000 people in Colorado that are currently participating in an apprenticeship program. We have 266 apprenticeship sponsor organizations, as well as 560 overall apprenticeship programs. But our labor force is much bigger than that, and we see such potential to grow apprenticeship as we continue to try to meet the demands of these current challenges we're seeing. Last year, we had 75 new programs added. The previous year, in 2020, there were only 30 programs added and 20 in the year before that. So we're seeing this growth year over year as part of these investments and as part of the resources, as a result of the resources that communities like Fort Collins are putting into this work. All right. So as you may have heard, in June last year, Governor Polis signed into law HB 21-1007, which established a state apprenticeship agency in Colorado. Right now, in order to register an apprenticeship program, you register with the U.S. Department of Labor. We have resources in place to facilitate that registration and reduce that burden for employers, as we know it can be a bureaucratic process. So we've worked to streamline that, and we're excited to work towards becoming the state apprenticeship agency so that registration happens in-house and doesn't happen at the U.S. Department of Labor. More about that timeline in a second. But with the passage of HB 21-1007, it was really one of the first large investments from the state into apprenticeship expansion. And it established the State Apprenticeship Agency within the Department of Labor and Employment to serve as the primary contact with USDOL concerning apprenticeships, to accelerate the growth of apprenticeship programs and the diversification of apprenticeships, both in terms of industries that haven't adopted apprenticeships as a viable model, and for populations that aren't participating in apprenticeships currently. We also, once we are recognized by USDOL, will be the party that actually registers the programs and ensures compliance with our standards and those key elements that I laid out before. So we're really excited to be starting on this path. There's about 30 other states that are state apprenticeship agency states and have that authority in-house. And we believe it'll present a great opportunity for us to continue to streamline processes and really increase adoption of apprenticeship and make it as easy as possible for more organizations to participate. And so with that, we are in a little bit of a limbo right now with the passage of the bill in Colorado that set us on this path to become recognized by USDOL. And to do that, we have established 2 councils to support and advise us on the creation of our processes and standards. So that's our State Apprenticeship Council, which advises us on building and construction trades, as well as our Interagency Advisory Committee on Apprenticeship that advises us on all other industries. And so we're kicking off those councils this week, which will help us build our plan, which we'll submit to USDOL by October. And then we'll begin rulemaking once we receive that approval from USDOL. And our deadline, as laid out in the legislation in Colorado, is to begin registering programs by July 1, 2023. So that's when we will have the authority to register programs. Right now, we are building out our state plan and continuing to support the expansion of registered apprenticeships with the USDOL office. So wanted to clarify that, and I'm happy to answer questions about that as we chart this path forward and begin that process. As we are in this limbo, we do have resources, and our entire expansion model has been built on facilitating registration with USDOL. So we have a few key resources available at the state level, in addition, again, to what Sandra will share that they've developed in Larimer County. So we have scale-up grants that are live for applications right now, and I'll go into more detail about those, but we're trying to invest and support the launching and expansion of registered apprenticeship programs and provide funding to support that. We also currently have technical support and technical assistance models that are resources that are available to employers across the state or to interested parties across the state. So we have a team of apprenticeship consultants that are categorized by industry who can work with you to understand whether registered apprenticeship programs are a good fit. And then we have a team of specialists in-house at CDLE who actually help with that registration process to submit to USDOL. We have apprenticeship support as well. We have apprenticeship scholarships for new apprentices that are might need additional assistance to buy materials, equipment, or anything that they might need to get to begin their apprenticeship program. And so we have up to $3,200 for apprenticeship scholarships that are available for new apprentices. And then we will be launching employer incentives as well to support and provide resources to employers who do bring on apprentices. So very high level overview of the key resources we have, but wanted to make sure you were aware. And if you have additional questions, to encourage you to follow up with the apprenticeship team, and I'll share the contact information there. Just because this opportunity is live right now, I wanted to make sure you are aware of the Scale Up Grant Program. So the RFP is available on our website, and these are awards for $10,000 to $50,000 to either launch or expand an existing registered apprenticeship program. So maybe you've thought about registered apprenticeship and you weren't sure if your program was a good fit, or you didn't have the resources to get through the registration process or build that out. We want to support you and encourage you to apply to this program. We have a cycle 1 that's released right now with up to $1.2 million being awarded to organizations in those small grant amounts. And it's an 18-month performance period. Applications close on April 15th. And so we have a lot of questions and answers resources and a webinar about how to apply, and are happy to talk through that as well. So wanted to make sure you're aware of that. And then also wanted to share just the other additional resources we have at the state level. We have an apprenticeship directory. Our website has a lot of training materials and information about different components of registered apprenticeship. And as I said, we have our consultants that are working across the state to expand resources and awareness about registered apprenticeships. So again, I'll share this presentation after. We'll drop some links into the chat after I finish rambling to you all, but wanted to make sure you at least had heard of some of these resources to help move to that adoption from awareness piece. So I'll leave it at that and just want to say thank you to the organizers for inviting us. Really excited to hand it off to Sandra to talk more about the local resources that have been developed and have made Larimer County and Fort Collins a leader in this space. So
Catherine, can I just, before you start, Catherine, there is a question for you.
oh yeah.
So can you explain how the process or experience will look different once SAA is up and running?
Yeah, I can explain what we hope it will look like as we are just beginning those processes. But a big reason that this legislation was brought was to make sure that we have a streamlined experience for individuals who are interested in building out registered apprenticeship programs or who have those programs. So we want to grow apprenticeship in the state and see more industries adopt a registered apprenticeship as a model. And so by bringing it in-house, we hope to make that process easier than and more streamlined and applicable to our local policies and our state dynamics than at the federal level. So this doesn't mean we're shifting standards dramatically. We're in the process of building our standards, but we'll be, in compliance with USDOL in order to get that recognition. We just want to see we want the State Apprenticeship Agency to be responsive, agile, and to really streamline that process, as I said.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sandra.
Morning, everyone. I am here as a representative of NOCO Inspire. And what great information we've already heard this morning, how to approach talent development and talent skill building. We've heard about resources at a state level to help support that work and specifically apprenticeship. I'm here to talk about more regional work and initiatives that are happening that the business community can plug into. First off, I want to talk about what is NOCO Inspire. So Larimer and Weld County have worked to create work-based learning alliances. We have been actively engaging in this work for several years. And our mission is really wanting to align our education and workforce to be able to create more accessibility for businesses by removing barriers, sharing resources, but we really want to make it easier and efficient for businesses to connect to work-based learning. Why work-based learning? Work-based learning is a talent development tool. So it's one of the things that you as a business can connect into, and it really refers to opportunities for learning that occur in part or in whole at the workplace, and it provides individuals with hands-on real-world experience. So in a nutshell, NOCO Inspire is a website, one-stop shop to connect to all things work-based learning across Larimer and Weld County. So as a business, you don't have to figure out how to navigate where to find those opportunities. We have one website where you can go to and find those resources in one spot and make connections from that website. So we are, NOCO Inspire, we are here to help take your business to the next level. We want to address any of your needs, your workforce challenges, and talk with you about how work-based learning can be a really meaningful solution for you. Our partners consist of partners throughout the education system, so K-12, higher education. We have workforce partners who are workforce centers, our sister agency with Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. And then we also have community partners. There are a lot of really great nonprofits in the community that work with job seekers and talent in the community and want to get them connected to work-based learning opportunities. And then, of course, we partner with our library districts as well. So we're bringing all these folks together to the table to best practice share to create easier systems so that you as a business can more efficiently connect to the talent that we're all working with. And just so that you have this in mind, I heard Bonnie talk about it. I heard Catherine talk about it. it's that time for businesses to start thinking about those pockets of talent that they haven't connected with, maybe traditionally. And one pocket of talent that here in Larimer and Weld County that is hugely disregarded but not tapped into is our youth and young adult population. Youth and young adult unemployment is pretty high right now. I think the last time I looked, it was over 70%. And just for all those businesses out there to start thinking about, oh, I should connect with youth, I should connect with young adults and bring them into my work environment and start getting, work experience out of them, but giving them opportunities to learn and grow. Our K-12 system across Larimer and Weld County has around 90,000 students. Our higher ed institutions across Larimer and Weld are around 40,000. And so if you're an employer who's thinking, where's my talent? Where are the job seekers? My question and challenge to you is, are you connecting in with our education system? Are you connecting in with a talent pool that is sitting there waiting to hear from you, waiting to learn from you? So that is my question of the day and my challenge to businesses. And if you want to connect, going to NOCO Inspire, finding those partners and reaching out to them is the way to start that connection. So we offer across Larimer County a lot of really meaningful work-based learning opportunities. NOCO Inspire, we organize this website in a way to help businesses understand that work-based learning is not a one-size-fits-all, and it expands beyond internship and apprenticeship opportunities. So connecting to NOCO Inspire and utilizing resources from our collaboration and through our collaboration, we really want to be able to help business owners prioritize and get job seekers excited about opportunities to connect. And so businesses and talent can do this through meaningful work-based learning opportunities. It can be as simple as career presentations within the classroom setting. You could provide job shadow opportunities, career tours, and then, internships and apprenticeships are where you're making a bigger commitment to developing that talent. But there are much easier ways to get started and get involved that are still just as valuable and really a great way for you as a business to get in front of your community and help them learn about you, who you are, and the work that you do. We are focusing and will be focusing a lot of effort toward building out apprenticeship across Larimer and Weld County. You heard from Catherine, this is a really meaningful work-based learning activity where businesses have the hand in how their talent is developed. So we are focusing regional efforts toward apprenticeship awareness and development, and really are looking to help businesses expand their understanding and perhaps build out some more opportunities for talent to connect in that way. So when you go to NOCO Inspire, know that what you're looking at is all work-based learning focused, but we really organize it in a way to help you as a business understand how this tool can help develop the talent that you're working with. So we kind of grouped our work-based learning activities and programs within the 3 bullet points that you see on the screen, right? So how using work-based learning can build industry awareness and exposure, how you can become creative with hiring and onboarding practices. And then of course, work-based learning is also in retaining your current workforce. So those employee retention activities and trainings are also part of the NOCO Inspire platform. So what do we have cooking coming up? You heard Catherine talk about some really great resources that are supported by the Office of Future of Work. What I really want businesses to understand with work-based learning, no matter what the activity is you have people in your community that will support you with that. This is not something that you have to figure out on your own. And so we're focusing on apprenticeship development coming up on May 4th. We have an event where not only are we going to recognize those businesses who are engaging in this talent development tool, but we are also going to be providing some meaningful information to businesses who want to learn more about apprenticeship as a talent solution. This event is free for businesses to attend. We're going to be serving a breakfast. You'll have an opportunity to come and hear more about the why, but really we're a very action-oriented group of folks here in Northern Colorado. So we want to give you the tools to actually start taking the steps. Outside of the Office of Future of Work and the meaningful grants and resources that they have, there is the statewide apprenticeship development hub. And this is great because this is going to be a really highly specialized person who can help support in developing out that apprenticeship program, can support you in doing research across the country to find other similar occupations. They can help you find the connections that you need to, whether it be to support the online or the on-the-job learning or the related instruction. But we want to share that information and that resource with the businesses at this event. Colorado Workforce Centers are a really great resource. And in fact, I always encourage businesses, if they just don't know where to start, I tell them to contact their local workforce center. There are apprenticeship navigators at both Employment Services of Weld County and at Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development. And those folks will be kind of your community contact for, asking those initial questions, figuring out if this is going to be a talent solution tool that is going to fit your business. And then they can move you and escalate you through the other resources that are there and available. There's also funding through workforce centers that can help support the apprentice. If you're working with apprentices who maybe don't have resources for training, who don't have resources to buy the tools and the gear, connecting with your local workforce center to provide support to that apprentice can be really meaningful. Believe it or not, our community college system has resources to support apprenticeship development. We'd love to share information at this event. We want you to hear about those resources so that you can find the appropriate program and support to help build out an apprenticeship opportunity. And then if you are interested in talking about youth, believe it or not, youth apprenticeships is a thing. It is viable. Youth apprenticeships is a really meaningful way to get young folks into your doors and working and learning at the same time. CareerWise Colorado is kind of our youth apprenticeship subject matter experts across the state. And they have done a really great job of balancing out not just the development of the apprenticeship program, but also that connection to the local school districts as well. So I would encourage all of you to register and attend the May 4th event to come learn about apprenticeship, learn about those resources that are there. But even if apprenticeship feels a little bit big, I would highly encourage folks to go check out NOCO Inspire and learn about the other work-based learning opportunities and the easy ways to connect to that talent. We don't want to let our 50,000 plus talent pool that's sitting there educating themselves, needing to have this work experience. We don't want them to not get connected in with our local community. And employers, you're the ones to raise your hand and step up and make those connections happen for those young folks. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody may have, but I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you at upcoming events to learn more about work-based learning.
Sandra and Sivan, you do have a couple of questions. So could hiring and onboarding strategies be expanded upon?
So they can be. And, one thing that I always tell businesses is that work-based learning activities, especially an activity like internships, can really give you an opportunity to get to know an employee and their capability before you bring them on. Internships are not just held to educational systems or are not just academic in nature. We have our workforce systems that work with adults who are in career transition that need that experience or an opportunity to build out a specific skill set to make them more competitive. in the job search, in that career transition. And so internships is a great way to even connect with adults in the community who are looking for that transition. But work-based learning is a talent development tool. A lot of people think, oh, it's all about the student or it's just about the education system, but it isn't, because you as a business can start by doing those easy activities where you're committing to career presentations, you're doing job shadows, you're bringing students in for career tours. And what you're doing there is you're exposing those young folks to you, that you exist in the community, to the occupations that you have. You're getting those young folks excited about what you do. And then they go back and talk with their friends, or they talk with their parents, or the teachers who are part of that are learning about it and sharing that information. And then if you create an internship opportunity, then you can market to those groups of students that you're connecting with. So you can see there that there's a very clear lineation of how you can start with light activities, getting your business known, and then grow into giving a work experience. And I will tell you, I've been working in the internship world for over 10 years, and internships is a very meaningful way of finding employees, and not just finding them, but finding employees that want to stay. So very often I've worked with a lot of youth internship programs. I see those young folks being hired on, even part-time, because they're still in school or they're going to post-secondary. But that business has invested the time, that young person has shown the skill set, and that business doesn't want to let them go. And so again, creating the flexibility for them to be able to work, then you're keeping that talent and they're staying with you and being invested. So I hope that answered the question.
I hope it did too. That was a great answer for sure. And then another question was, how can people sign up for that apprenticeship, resource breakfast? And so it's on the Fort Collins Chamber website, the flyer that was in your slides. People will also receive those slides as well. But it's that link, and the whole information about that event is on currently right now on the fortcollinschamber.com website. So I have one more question for Catherine. And the question is, let me get back to it here. Is this apprenticeship program in conjunction with or in partnership with CareerWise by chance? I have used CareerWise in the past, which sounds like a very similar program, and I'm curious what the differences are.
That is a great question. CareerWise is a great partner of ours, and what they serve as is essentially an intermediary for the registered apprenticeship system. So they work in close partnership, like I said, with us at CDLE and with USDOL to help support registration. So they serve a similar role that we do currently in supporting and facilitating that process. And so they have some USDOL grants as well, and they administer those with a focus on those youth apprenticeships. So the main difference is just their population focus. They have a specific model, but they are helping to grow the adoption of registered apprenticeship programs for youth across the state. So partners in conjunction, once we get recognized as the state apprenticeship agency, those programs would then be registered with Colorado. And so we'd work with CareerWise in a similar capacity that they work with USDOL for their Colorado apprenticeships. Hopefully that was clear, but happy to clarify further if needed.
I really appreciate that. That was a great answer. So I haven't received any more other questions about the great conversations that we've had today about work-based learning, about apprenticeships. We're so grateful to have both Sandra and Catherine in our corner as the business community helping us with this great work, and they're both available. We'll share out their slides and their contact information as well. So thank you very much. Okay, so we're moving on to our next speaker, William B. Henry, who has actually graciously agreed to, in the middle of his presentation, for a whole day training event in Bozeman, Montana, to skip off for 15 minutes and come join us. So he's currently zooming in, and I just see him now on our screen. So we're absolutely good to go. Some things just work out smoothly. Thanks for the angels. So our next speaker is presentation will, I should start at the beginning, sorry. Our next presentation will introduce us to diversity, equity, and inclusion at a high level. The session will provide key objectives related to DEI and give several tangible tools that we can take back and apply immediately. And a few months ago, Ann and Kim and I from the Chamber were able to go to the Western Area Chamber Executives Conference where in Arizona, which was great, where we got to meet William B. Henry. He was a keynote speaker there. And so we made every effort to be sure we could bring him to Northern Colorado. So I'm pleased to introduce William B. Henry, founder of the Be Better World. William specializes in having DEII conversations around leadership development, strategic planning, employee engagement, and culture building. He has more than 20 years of experience in enhancing the performance of individual executives, teams, and organizations. His background encompasses a wide range of programs and initiatives for organization design, cultural change, and professional development. His unique approach to leadership and organization development began during his 20 years in the blood banking industry, where William served as Regional Director of Human Resources, Executive Director of the Rocky Mountain Region, Regional Director of Blood Operations, and Vice President of Production Planning. William is also the founder of Be Better World, LLC, a self-empowerment movement geared toward developing professionals and youth to deal with real-time issues that stand in their way and how to take the next steps to success. His stance takes a different approach as he works directly with clients to implement strategies and teach skills that can be carried through every phase of life. Be Better World is gaining national attention, and his motto is, we all play a role. William, the screen is yours.
Thank you for such a well done introduction. So I am literally ecstatic to be on the call with you all. I'm trying to work through some particulars. So Yvonne, you might have to help me. Do you guys have the screen control or do I have it? I'm just trying to figure out what we got here.
You can try to launch your own slides and we'll see what happens.
Okay. So just to kind of give you guys some background, actually, I think I'll stay away from the slides. Just to kind of give you guys some background about what I do. Right now, the 50% of my work is in the DEI space, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I include another I in that space simply because I think implementation to this process becomes very, very important and is very rarely talked about. So what I want to do for the next 12 minutes or so is walk you through some of how we look at it, and we try to take the uncomfortable conversation to a more comfortable conversation. So the first thing I want to talk about is basically what is diversity? And diversity is simply 3 words. Again, we can give you academic definitions or something of that nature, but I think it's really important to understand that diversity is 3 things. It's respect for others, it's understanding culture, and appreciating variety. And I think so when we think about that in the business world, I like to think about it from 4 angles. Now, if you Google diversity, you could be reading from now to 2023. So I try to break it into 4 chunkable parts. And so we'll talk about it from this perspective. So there's what we have. There's something that we have that's called internal diversity. And internal diversity is your race, your age, your ethnicity. Those are things that you cannot change. And so when we think about it, we're all born with a certain set of DNA codes that we cannot impact. So those things we can't change. External things that have an influence on us is our cultural beliefs, our historical beliefs. Those kind of things are things that can change and do change over time depending upon what we are influenced by. So internal, external. The third is what I call the organizational workplace when we talk about diversity. So for those of you all who have had more than one job, you bring a different culture to your second job, and that culture is instilled in you, whether you believe that they did the right thing and you stayed for a time, or you left because the culture wasn't right. You bring that information into your new space. So it's very important to understand that too is a part of diversity. And then the other part is the culture that you are a part of. So what I mean by that is this. So whether you are your socioeconomic status, the influence of what you believe, all those things impact your ability and also is a part of the diversity model that we look at. So just to repeat those, there's internal diversity, there's external diversity, there's organizational workplace diversity, and there's culture. Now, again, if you Google it, you could talk about diversity from a lot of angles, but for the business world, those are the 4 angles that we like to focus on. So that's diversity. Secondly, we talk about equity, and I want to be sure that you understand the difference between equity and equality. And people use those words interchangeably, and I would highly recommend that you do not use those words interchangeably because they mean something totally different. So for those of you all who are writing, equality is giving individuals the same thing irregardless to their needs. So the example I like to use here is if I walked around the room full of millionaires and I walked around it and there was 2 individuals who were less fortunate and I gave everybody $100 bill, I think it's safe to say that the millionaires probably do not need the $100 bills. The people who are less fortunate as far as finances are concerned probably do need $100 bills. However, equality looks at them all equal. Equity looks at individuals and meets them where they are. So this is very, very important. So if in an equitable situation, I would actually do more work to find out what the individuals in the room needed, and I would make sure that was assessment. So equity is hard, and here's why equity is hard, because you actually have to understand the role and the players in the room that you're working with. So in businesses, a lot of time we talk about equality because it's easier. We have one rule, we do it this way, and that makes sense to a degree. So I want to be clear, equality is not bad. So for you talking about things like an attendance policy, equality makes absolute sense. If you say to be to work at 8 o'clock, individuals don't show up at 8 o'clock, you handle everybody the same. But when you're trying to grow a business or an organization and make sure that you're honing in on your great talent, I think you have to understand that equity is as important, if not sometimes more important than equality. So the example I give people all the time is that you hire two very, very talented people and one has a hearing impairment. You will decide that you understand this person needs a telephone that allows them to hear better, amplified device, and you don't give it to person A who doesn't need it. You give it to person B who needs it. That's an equitable situation. What I advise you against is making sure that you don't give the person who doesn't need it the device. However, you explain to them that this is what this person needs to meet the standards of the job. That's the difference between equity and equality. So again, we talked about diversity a little bit in 4 segments. We talked about the difference between equity and equality a little bit. And now let me move you to something before we get to inclusion. About times in life, we're trying to change individuals' stance about what diversity, equity, inclusion is. I am here to submit to you that if you're in this space, your role should not be to change individuals. Our role in this space is to provide tools and concepts and allow individuals to move at the pace that they see fit to move at. I think a lot of times why this information gets a bad light is because we're trying to shove it down individuals' throat and we're not giving them the opportunity to digest the information at their pace. So if you think about change, change has some very, very unique qualities. So change always starts with the belief. And those beliefs lead you to a thought, which leads you to feelings. From that, you start thinking about the result of the change. And we make these changes on a daily basis. Add into this conversation something as heavy as a topic as diversity, equity, and inclusion. You will see why we should be very, very careful about trying to change people as opposed to trying to provide them information to do the work necessary in this space to be successful. So people ask me frequently, are you here to change our mind? And I said, I can't change your mind in a seminar in 15 minutes about what diversity, equity, and inclusion is. What I hope to do is lay some tools on the table and you take those back to your respective workplaces and you use those how you see fit. The last piece of this is with regards to changes, you have to be in the workspace authentic about your change. And what I mean by that is this. Your staff, your employees will see through if you're just doing the work to check the box. So I think it's very, very important as you start to explore diversity, equity, and inclusion, that you are authentic in the space, so that you do not allow your employees to see any cracks in that armor, because trust me when I tell you, they will take advantage of those cracks if they see a disingenuous spirit when you're working in the space. So that's diversity, that's equity, and that's how we change. So now let's talk about a little bit about inclusion. So inclusion is very important because I always use this quote: when nobody gets left behind, everyone moves forward. So this is very important. I'll say it again: when nobody gets left behind, everybody moves forward. I say that for a couple of reasons. It's important that the majority understand where we're moving. Now, the majority could be any, depending upon the room, it could be any subset of population of individuals. So it doesn't have to be about color, it could be about gender, it could be about disabilities, but the majority has to understand. And the reason this information is sometimes not accepted as openly as other things is because people fear a sense of loss. So let me give you an example here. So when I say to you, if you're working in a standard business, and I say out loud that we're going to add a trans-neutral bathroom into the environment, people's initial response to that is one or two things. What does this mean for me, and what am I going to lose? So in the inclusion space, your job as leaders is to remove the fear associated with that. So keep in mind, I didn't say I was going to add a trans-neutral bathroom and take away a female bathroom or a male bathroom. I said addition. So when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think it's highly important that people understand that this is not about addition through subtraction. This is simply about addition. We're trying to bring individuals and thought to the table that wasn't included in the past. That's not to say that we're going to remove information or individuals that were already at the table. I think that's where this message simply gets lost. So diversity, 4 steps. Equity, again, the difference between equity and equality. Equity is meeting people where they are. Equality is giving everybody what they need, regardless of their need, giving everybody the same thing, regardless of their need. Inclusion is making sure that all parties are involved to include the majority. So I want to go back to the majority for a second, because this is really important. When you're talking about in a business setting, the majority normally holds your institutional knowledge. So you want to make sure that they understand the process and the strategy behind why you may be implementing something. Now, this is the other important point. That doesn't mean they're always going to agree. In this space, we're not looking for agreements, we're looking for understanding. And those are two totally different things. So as you work through this space, again, I'm going to make the assumption that you're going to be working with highly intelligent people. However, they do have emotions. Your job is to manage the emotion so that you can get to the real work. So we're not looking for agreements. I'm looking for the opportunity to understand diversity, equity, and inclusion at a higher level. So when we talk about that, that's very, very important. The last thing that I will leave you all with, and I'll leave 2 or 3 minutes for questions, is the communication and language that's used when presenting this information is probably the most paramount thing. So I have several people on the phone. I'll ask you guys to do a very quick exercise. You don't have to report it out to anybody, but I'll tell you how it works. Go back to your staff and you ask them this question, and I'll show you how important language is when you're talking about this. You ask them this. There's this drink that we are all familiar with. It's in a 12 ounce, it's in a can, and it's 12 ounces, and it has fizz in it. And if you ask your staff to write down what they call it anything from pop to Coke to soda to whatever the flavor is. Think about how the language impacts diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you have to be careful with the language that you use. You want to be surgical about how you apply it. And lastly, you want to make sure it's not something that's used to check a box. This is something that you're using as a cultural shift. This is where your organization needs to be going. But if you're using it to check the box, I've seen more failure than success in that process. So just to reiterate that again, you talk diversity, equity, inclusion, realizing that change plays a huge role in that space as well. And then from this change space comes, how do you implement the work? And for those of you all who have not been through a process of implementation, in the next series, next week, we'll get into how you implement something that's as heavy as this process. But what I will tell you is that you have to be diligent in it. Understand that you will hit some roadblocks when you're working through this space, but you can't allow the roadblocks to get you off the end goal. This is one of those spaces where I can tell you, given that egos, emotions, and ignorance is involved. Again, none of those things are bad if controlled. You will have to understand that that will be your job to manage that process. And with that small, quick snippet, I know I just gave you a fire hose approach, but I wanted to put that information out. We'll dig deeper in the session in the following week, but I wanted to put that out so that you had an understanding. I will open it up to any questions that I might be able to answer.
William, it's Yvonne. I haven't seen any questions yet, so you must have done a very good job of your explanation, which is amazing. And we're super grateful that you could come today for that, in between your whole day session that you're doing up in Bozeman, and that you could give us this teaser for this 15 minutes, because we will have you next week on the 14th from 1 to 2 via Zoom. And again, you can register for that. There's no charge. The first start of our talent series, we're starting with William B. Henry, and we're super excited about that next week on Thursday, right? The 14th. 14th is, I should look at my calendar. Yes, Thursday the 14th from 1 to 2. So thank you so much. There is one comment that says, yes, thank you, William. So we really appreciate and getting to know you beforehand, so that people, and we have quite a few people already signed up for that event next week. So we hope we get a lot of others as well. So good luck with the rest of your workshop today in Bozeman. And thank you so much for joining us today.
You guys have a good day.
All right. So we'll move on to our last session. And so it is my privilege and honor to introduce my boss, Ann Hutchison. She's the president and CEO of the Fort Collins Area Chamber of Commerce, and became president and CEO last January 1st. So over a year now. She started with the chamber in 2003 as policy committee coordinator and was promoted to executive vice president in 2005. Before moving into the CEO role, Hutchison directly managed the communication and event departments, assisted in the day-to-day operation of the chamber, and managed issues and political advocacy, as well as the chamber's Leadership Fort Collins and Leadership Northern Colorado programs. Most recently, she has been a key leader in the community pandemic economic response, recovery, and reignite efforts. Ann has been a member of the Talent 2.0 steering committee since inception and will provide us an update on the progress of Talent 2.0 on our upcoming talent series and many other things. So Ann, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Yvonne. We are so excited to have Yvonne on our team, but as well to be continuing this history of hosting a talent summit, sharing important information with you, our business community, about how you can manage the challenging space that we're all in. Before I do a very, very quick update on where we've been with Talent 2.0 and where we're headed, I want to invite to join us Kelly DiMartino. So Kelly is our interim city manager for the city of Fort Collins. She's been here in Fort Collins for I won't say how long, because it doesn't matter how long you've been here. She's been a key contributor, a key partner, and is just doing some amazing things at City Hall. And we know that the city of Fort Collins is one of our single largest employers here in Fort Collins. As we look at that list of major employers, they're right there at the top. So there's no doubt that they have experiences in size and scope that many of us don't have, but I do think they have insights that can be very powerful and helpful to business. So welcome, Kelly. We're thrilled to have you here. Actually, I'll start off with having you just share a few comments and observations of the city organization and your role with the city organization, and then we've got a handful of other questions.
All right, thank you, Anne. Well, good morning, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to just come and say hello and spend a few minutes talking with you about some of our efforts here in the city of Fort Collins. So again, I am right now serving as our interim city manager, but as Ann indicated, have been with the organization for a while, and during that time have been able to work with really every department at some level in our city organization and our wide variety of services. We have over 2,000 employees here in the city of Fort Collins, and so a wide, diverse array of services, and I'm just looking forward to spending a little time today talking about that.
Thanks, Kelly. Culture is a key issue for many organizations, whether you're small like us with 10 employees or ginormous like you with 2,000. Talk a little bit about how you maintain culture across an organization of your size, and especially with such a diverse workforce. You have people that are cleaning bathrooms at parks all the way up to folks like Teresa that are running your HR department for this sizable organization. Talk about culture a little bit.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, Anne. So we are very intentional about our culture in the city of Fort Collins. One of the things that we do is twice a month, we have a new employee orientation. So all of our new hires start twice a month, and I spend an hour with them just orienting them to what is the culture in the organization. And we talk about, with all these faces in the room, I have police officers and chemists and park technicians and IT people, right? Very diverse individuals. They all have unique roles to play, but we're all focused on a common purpose and align around a common mission to service. So our organizational mission is exceptional service for an exceptional community. And that really is what binds us together. We talk about that exceptional service. Outstanding service is one of our values. So again, from the first day that people enter the organization to the weekly messages that I'm providing, I'm highlighting those examples of service and letting people know how they connect to the community. I will say, we also have some subcultures in the organization, right? The police subculture may be different than the park subculture. And we think that's healthy as long as they're all connected to that general mission and vision of the city. So we spend time intentionally talking about it and making sure that our behaviors reflect the culture we want to have.
Fantastic. And a wonderful suggestion, whether, again, you have 2,000 employees or you have 10, making sure you understand what your culture is and providing opportunities to reinforce it is something we can all do. We've all been impacted by pandemic, economic downturn. The last 2 years have been certainly a very interesting social study on change. Talk a little bit about how your organization has managed through the last 2 years with changing regulations and expectations of work. Just observations from your seat relative to the last 2 years.
Yeah, I would say that the disruption of the pandemic has changed us at nearly every level. And one observation is that city government can be agile and nimble. I know that may not be the first thing that comes to people's mind when they think about government, but we really have been able to pivot quickly where we needed to do so. And I think now what we're doing is trying to figure out how do we take those learnings and continue to adapt moving forward. The other thing I'll just say, and again, I think this is true whether you have an organization with 3 employees or whether you have, 3,000. The pandemic revealed our humanness, right? Everyone was dealing with this in the same way, and we all had to figure it out together. And so those connections and just the humanity that was revealed, I think, is something that as an organization we're continuing to work through. How do we embrace that moving forward?
Wonderful. Thank you. Your organization, like so many of ours, have been impacted by what some are calling the Great Resignation, others are calling the Great Awakening. Certainly our organization ended up a beneficiary of the Great Awakening, but certainly City Hall and city government has been highly impacted by retirement of key leadership positions. Talk a little bit about how you've been able to manage through that, and very specifically, the things that you've done over the last 6 months in order to really bring some stability back into your organization.
Our organization has not been immune to the transition that's happening. We've had a lot of it. And again, I think we have been intentional about how do we try and, again, navigate and bring stability, as you mentioned. So we have been trying to keep up with the pace of change, I'll say, and levels of all levels of the organization. We've had a lot of recruitment going on. And so we have had to supplement bringing in additional resources in our HR team to help stabilize our teams more quickly. So our talent acquisition team is really getting focused on areas where we have intense market pressure, things like bus drivers, places that have direct service impact. Those are areas that have been hotspots that we have been focusing on. We're also zooming out and have an organizational conversation going on around the future of work. And so, again, looking at that through multiple angles in terms of ongoing hybrid and remote work options, in terms of technology and how we get better at some of our business process and digital acumen. Looking at our employees who have to be on site all the time, right? We don't have the ability of everyone to work remotely as some people want to be able to do. So we're really looking at all of those pieces holistically. The other thing I just want to highlight real quickly for this audience, because again, I think no matter what size your organization, we've created employee resource groups. One I'll highlight is a Caregivers Alliance. And again, the pandemic has just revealed more than ever the challenges to our caregivers. And so as I leave this meeting, I'm actually going to go to our executive leadership team and hear an update from our leaders of the Caregivers Alliance of some of the things that they're learning from their conversations with employees. So it's really listening to the organization and adapting.
Thank you for sharing those insights, especially those employee resource groups. What a wonderful addition and great path to be on in order to, again, reinforce your culture, which is about service not only to our larger community, but to each other. So thank you for sharing that. Any other insights from the time that you've been in the city manager role that you'd like to share with our audience today, or other tips and tricks that could help some of our folks manage through this talent challenge that we're having right now?
Well, I don't know about tips and tricks, but I would just say an insight for me has been how interconnected we are and how, again, much we're all sharing in these same challenges. I have been impressed with how much the community comes together. I think that's one of the special things about Fort Collins, and even events like this, I'm grateful to the Chamber for pulling it together. So I guess my tip and trick would be to continue to rely on one another, and for your city organization, know that we are here both in a spirit of partnership with you all and also a spirit of service, and just welcome any ongoing conversations about how we can best work together.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for a little bit of your time today, Kelly. We appreciate it, and certainly appreciate the City of Fort Collins being our gold sponsor for the Talent Summit today. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Anne. You too.
So while Kelly's jumping off, I'm going to share some slides just to walk a little bit through where we've been with this talent journey. So your Chamber of Commerce has been working in this space for really almost a decade. And our focus around talent really came into top priority in 2017 when we launched our Northern Colorado Prospers campaign and promised the business community that we would work diligently on this issue every single day. And that work over the last 5 years has really focused on knocking down barriers that we believe are impactful to the success of talent in Northern Colorado, working on alignment of the system. I oftentimes talk about how our workforce system is a bit of a battleship. It is ginormous in size, and there are a ton of partners that are working in this space, We've been working with those partners to make sure that we're all headed in the right direction. And then finally, we've been working on increasing access. So increasing access for employers to employees, but also making it easier for employees to signal to employers that they're interested in the work. Before I jump into that access piece, which is really a bit of a showcase for us, I do want to just let our audience know about the work we have continued to do on barriers. So we know that a huge majority of our citizens across Northern Colorado get into a car every morning and travel to their place of work. And many of them travel along I-25. We have been solely dedicated on expanding that roadway to 3 lanes from Fort Collins all the way to Denver and back. And unfortunately or fortunately, you're seeing the result of that work today. We have construction going on I-25. I know that we've got some closures coming up this weekend that'll be probably frustrating for the moment. But the good news is we are this close to getting that roadway completed and becoming an actual resource for us here in Northern Colorado in order for us to move goods and services. We continue to work with our state and our federal legislators in order to identify additional dollars in order to complete that project to its full vision. And again, are spending time every single day making sure that people don't forget about how important that roadway is and how it does impact our workforce here in Northern Colorado. When it comes to housing, we've been a convener relative to housing conversations. With I-25, it's very easy because we know exactly what the solution is. We need a whole bunch of money and we need a whole bunch of concrete, and we can expand that roadway to make it a more viable tool. With housing, the solutions aren't quite so simple. And unfortunately, oftentimes one solution will trigger another unintended consequence. So we're spending a lot of time working with decision makers, working with employers, working with our larger community to really understand the impact of housing, especially attainable and affordable housing, and how we can create that here in Northern Colorado. And then finally, when it comes to barriers, there's no doubt that childcare has been a long-standing challenge for many of our workforce. Oftentimes, someone wants to join the workforce but simply can't because of a lack of access to childcare, or they have access to childcare but can't afford it. We continue to work with important partners across Northern Colorado, including the United Way, to really understand the challenges and also to break down those barriers. It's incredibly exciting. United Way actually just launched yesterday a funding tool in order to help families navigate their way through this childcare crisis. So pay attention to your chamber newsletter, but as well to the United Way to learn more about how, if you're in a very positive financial position, you can support this work, or if you're needing a hand up, that they can help and support you. So keep an eye out on that. But let's talk a little bit more about access. Some things that are happening here in Northern Colorado that we really do want to make sure that you're aware of. The first is our talent portal. We launched this in 2018. It's a centralized hub to showcase jobs that are available here in Northern Colorado. We've had thousands and thousands of jobs posted on this site. And as an employer, you haven't had to post a single job here because we've developed the site to be able to go out, to find your jobs, to pull them over to the site and put them on display for the world to see. Additionally, this site ends up being a tremendous community showcase. As people are considering moving to the area, they can learn about not only the community of Fort Collins, but they can learn about Evans, they can learn about Alt, they can learn about Greeley, and really begin to see how this is a regional workforce and a region where people can have success. Finally, then, the portal includes employer resources that we encourage you to check out. Tremendous opportunities there, from one-page information sheets that you can share with prospective employees to a couple of other super fun things that I'm actually going to talk about right now. And that includes access to what we call Hire Me, Connect My Partner. That's a concierge service that was created by our friends at Larimer County with support by the Chamber. Through this effort, you can receive one-on-one customized services from the Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development team. And so if you're going out and you're hiring your next VP of strategic initiatives and her husband or wife is unable to find work here in Northern Colorado, with one call, we can connect you with Hire Me, Connect My Partner, and help that trailing spouse, that trailing family member find the opportunity that makes the most sense for them. So that way, we not only hire a great person into our community, we connect their partner and we get a 2-for-1. And information about Hire Me, Connect My Partner can be found at workinnortherncolorado.com. Also available at that site and in a companion site is NOCO Inspire. And Sandra shared with us today some great insights relative to the Work-Based Learning Alliance and the work that the county is leading relative to bringing together all of our educational partners in order to make it easier for you as employers to add internships, apprenticeships, shadow opportunities, and more to your talent pipeline. So we certainly encourage you to visit nocoinspire.com to learn more about those various partners and the services that they can provide, hopefully creating more of a one-stop shop for you as a business employer, that you can more easily add those opportunities to the things that you're doing on a daily basis. And then finally, we've been spending a lot of time with our sector partnerships. These have been efforts where we've brought together, alongside many other community partners, industry to work on things that are just a little bit bigger than what they need to work on by themselves. But if they work together, they can move mountains. And we've got the health sector partnership and the Northern Colorado manufacturing sector partnership have been underway for over 10 years. And bringing those employers together to really understand issues that are larger than a single organization and moving the dial on those issues has been tremendous. Both of those partnerships have been highly focused on workforce, and they've certainly been able to do things like offer getting into the guts, a hands-on experience for kids to figure out if health services is something they want to do, or NOCO Manufacturing Con, an opportunity to learn about the industry, understand how tremendous opportunity is in that industry if you make some decisions. We're also then happy to support the recent relaunch of the construction and trade sector partnership, bringing together those folks that are desperately searching for employees on a daily basis, but also wanting to change the way that they do their work on a daily basis. And coming soon, we have a retail hospitality sector partnership that's getting ready to launch. And we're starting conversations about a finance sector partnership. The commonality among all of these partnerships right now is definitely talent and changing the way that we find, train, and create talent. And we certainly invite any and all of you to join us in this work. Yvonne Myers, again on our team, has been a tremendous advocate for sector partnerships through her time here in Northern Colorado, and is doing the work that she needs to do in order to make sure that these partnerships are tremendously successful for all of Colorado. And then finally, just want to give you a snapshot preview of where we're headed. So your chamber will continue to be highly involved in this space. We've hired Yvonne very specifically to work on talent on an everyday basis, helping you as employers to find the workforce that you need and to be successful in keeping that workforce. So we're going to continue to attract funding. There have been a number of opportunities for us here in Northern Colorado to secure state and federal dollars in order to do this work. We're going to continue to pursue those opportunities because if we can bring a resource to the table, it makes it easier for business to get the job done. And then finally, we'll continue to be a champion and a convener for our regional talent conversation. We're here to be your voice business and to make sure that we move that battleship exactly where it needs to go in order for you to find the talent that you need. That is all that I have for the update today. Let me turn it back over to Yvonne to provide a wrap up of some exciting new things that are coming.
Great. Thank you, Anne. Really appreciate all your updates and all your nice comments about me. I feel very busy and I'm glad for that. Super excited to be here at the Chamber and help everyone in this space. So I think it's super exciting. If you register for any of our events and our talent series, I get an email. And so we've already had 4 people register for William B. Henry's DEI conversation next Thursday. So be sure you get registered for that. There's no limit, but get your registration in would be great. So when I was asked to design the summit, we did that. And then if you think about it, we have a wonderful workforce symposium that our Weld and Larimer County workforce friends put together in September around, reworking the way we lead at work. And that's a wonderful event as well. And it felt like to me as business members, we should be aware of the Talent Summit and the Workforce Symposium, and they happen about 6 months apart. Well, when you do that and you go, here's one here and one here, you think, well, what should happen in between? And so that's when we formed the Talent Series. So every 10 days or so, there's events, different conversations, mostly about an hour. A lot of them are Zoom, or a lot of them are in person. So we've got our spring talent series already set up. And let me just walk you through those. Again, fortcollinschamber.com. But here, let me tell you what's happening in the next 2 months or so. Diversity, Equity, Inclusion with William B. Henry, as we've talked about, is April 14th via Zoom. The actionable ways to create a family-friendly workplace, and that is happening on April 19th. It's a breakfast, and it's really in that childcare opportunity space. They're going to be at the Fort Collins Marriott on the April 19th. Again, look at our website for information. We have a presentation from Verizon, an international company, about the work they have been doing for the last 3 or 4 years in the DEI space on April 27th via Zoom. We have a wonderful session on profit from experience, leading an age-diverse workplace. So how do you hire that older worker? And that's going to be Zoom on May 3rd. Sorry about that, May 3rd. Then the next day on May 4th is the Apprenticeship Pathways to Employment Breakfast that Sandra talked about. It's actually going to be at Desk Chair in Loveland, and that does have a limit. So get yourself registered for that because they have a space limit there. So get on our site and get registered for that. Skillful 100, skills-based recruitment strategies on May 12th via Zoom. Super excited about that. That is the super biggest shift that you can make. How do you list your jobs? How do you interview? How are you looking for talent instead of saying, these are the skills I'm looking for? How do you look at everyone that comes in your door to see if they are a culture fit and can you train them to your job? Great session you should attend. And then on June 2nd, we have Inclusion in Action, Discovering Your Untapped Diversity. And that's with someone from the Larimer County Workforce System. So that's a wonderful Zoom session as well. And then the week of June 13th or so, we have a really exciting hands-on experience. As you've learned today, Job Shadows is a very good way to start your work in this talent space. So job shadow and then move on to internship and then maybe apprenticeship. And I know for me at Columbine, when we were asked to do job shadows, we thought, what can we teach elementary, middle schoolers? What can we do with high school kids? How can we make it simple? How can we make it meaningful? How could we have them in our space, especially with elderly adults? And so we're putting together a tour at New Works Mechanical sometime that week of June 13th. So we're working on the date. So check our website. For 30 businesses to come, New Works has a wonderful job shadow experience that they do with high school students. You will come as the business and you will be that high school student. You'll learn about how they do their tour. You actually will read plans, and then you'll create something out of pipes or a plumbing company and maybe even a little bit of welding. And then after you experience that, we're going to spend some time with you to help you to figure out how you could do a job shadow experience. And what we're hoping is to launch 30 more businesses into this job shadow space and in this work-based learning. So that's the end of our talent series for this spring. We're going to take the summer off because we all have things to do in the summer with our families and life there. And we'll start again in the fall. So we already have a couple of sessions in the fall we're working on, but I would very much love for you to communicate with me via email, call the chamber, Reach out to me if you have topic suggestions, if you have ideas, if you have a presentation you'd love to make. This is really just constant conversations to keep the business community aware and updated all the time in this talent space. So please visit, again, fortcollinschamber.com to register for one of these talent series. So we're about to end. We're going to end on time, maybe a few minutes early. So Merry Christmas to you. We gave you some time. It is now time for us to bring it to a close. Today's event is only possible because of our sponsors. And again, as you know, our gold sponsor, the City of Fort Collins, our bronze sponsors, BizWest Media, Elevations Credit Union, HP, Robert Half, and UC Health. Our event sponsors, Canvas Credit Union, Jet Marketing, North 40 News, Northern Engineering, and Sinorama. A big thank you as well to our wonderful speakers. What a cadre of different people we have from across the country and even in Golden and Denver for us. I don't know about all of you, but I'm walking away with more ideas for how we can rethink the way that we work. Thank you for joining us today. Sorry, no, I'm crying. I look forward to working with you in the future. Have a wonderful day.